Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. As we are just about at Easter, I thought I would do an Easter-focused segment here. And in this case, I am addressing our very last reunion special, A Walton Easter. If you're enjoying these segments, please do hit like and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified when I am releasing a new video, then you can hit that little notification bell. We filmed this episode in 1996 and it aired in 1997. It was directed by Bill Corcoran and written by Julie Sayers. When we open the episode, John Boy is in a broadcast studio, like a news studio, in New York, and he is speaking about the moon landing. And then we cut back to Walton's Mountain, where Mom and Daddy are getting ready to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. John Boy and his wife, Janet, played by actress Kate McNeil, are planning to come to the mountain because of the anniversary coming up. John Boy's worried because he has a book deadline and various different things like that. And Janet is very pregnant, but says that she still has a month left. So they are going to attend the anniversary. We learn that Olivia is now working as a school teacher at a school that Aaron is the principal of. So kind of getting a sense of where their lives have gone. And Olivia is dealing with a new child, Jimmy Weeks, who seems very shy, and she is drawn to him, of course, wanting him to feel welcome and comfortable in a new school setting, knowing how difficult that can be. Aaron advises that she just, give him some time, and that, not to go out and talk to the parents because it might be awkward. And of course, Olivia feels like, come on, I've been doing this a lot longer than you, and I need to trust my instincts. That's why you hired me. With all of the cast reconnecting for this special, everyone was back, and so we get to see some of these relationships again. John Boy arrives, all of the family is there. He does bring along a photographer, Sydney Walsh, who plays photographer Aurora Jeffries, who's there to document all of this for John Boy's new book. So she creates a little extra drama and conflict within the family. And we get to see some of this from her perspective. But we revisit Olivia and John and their relationship, where they're talking about maybe what they want to do for their anniversary, and just talking about how John says he still feels 20 and Olivia says she still feels 18. And that just struck me about how as we get older, we often don't feel our age, and we still have that younger version of ourselves very much alive inside. We also see John Boy and his relationship with the various different members of the family as we all come to visit and welcome them all back. Speaking of people returning, Elizabeth returns from, world travel. She's been a number of places, including Paris and Rhodesia. And when she arrives, there's just this moment. I've talked sometimes about marks and things, and you see Michael come out to hit a mark, and you just have this moment where you sort of see something on the ground. As I said, sometimes they would remove the actual mark and maybe put a stick or a rock or something. So I can't quite identify what it is that's on the ground there, but Michael went to her mark, and then Cammie would know where she needed to be to adjust to that. And then, of course, everybody else comes in and they just adjust to where Michael is. John Boy is experiencing a real sense of nostalgia being back on the mountain and how it just feels right to him. And he's at a point in his life where he's just recognizing the importance of the mountain and the family and all of this and how it nurtures him. And so he's a little torn about what he wants to do. And this creates conflict between him and Janet, who is very upset about him voicing that maybe he doesn't love their life in New York. What does he want to do? And it's very upsetting to her, particularly being pregnant. And Olivia keeps advising him to don't upset your wife, and how much more emotional some women can be when they are expecting. But John Boy has a conversation with John just about life, and it's kind of nice to see that. I love that Verdi appears in this special. that she runs into John Boy in town, and they have a lovely moment together. And then she comes to visit Olivia later, brings her an Easter lily, and invites Olivia and the Waltons to attend their Easter sunrise service with their congregation, and just speaking about how her people and the Waltons, they've known each other forever, but they haven't really shared some of those types of experiences. So it was great to have Lynn Hamilton back for this special. Elizabeth's longtime boyfriend, Drew, is now working with John and Ben in the mill. And when Elizabeth returns, Elizabeth comes back thinking that she's just going to be able to pick up with Drew. She's planning to stay, and she is heartbroken when Drew says he didn't know what was going on. She was out of touch, and he's met someone else. So now Elizabeth needs to determine what to do with that. And at one point she has a great conversation with Mama about this, and Olivia advises Elizabeth that nobody likes a sad sap. Nobody wants to feel like they're uncomfortable being around someone who they feel that they have hurt, and that perhaps Elizabeth needs to change her tactics. And she does. So she goes out, she gets all dressed up, looks absolutely stunning. She has that amazing hair. It's all real, and it just grows like a weed, and I can't believe how thick it is. At one point we see her with a braid where the bottom of it is like just as thick as the top. I'm so envious. But she goes out to serve lemonade to Drew when he is working in the mill, and just says that he's absolutely right, and she wishes him well, and maybe, perhaps he could invite his girlfriend to the house for dinner. And this completely throws Drew, because she's being so understanding and not making him feel bad about it. So now he has no reason to really resist it, and it makes him start questioning what he really wants. John Boy and John go to visit the Baldwin sisters, who've asked to see them, and they tell them that now that they're reaching their older years and starting to think about their mortality, that they feel that they need to get their affairs in order. And one of their decisions is, where are they going to leave the recipe for the recipe? And they say that they have decided, in honor of Zeb, who always so loved the recipe, that they want to entrust this to the Waltons. And that's a little bit of a surprise for John and John Boy, who agree that they're not going to tell Mama. John Boy talks about going to his old writing cabin. I'm not sure. I guess it's just a place he used to go. I don't remember ever on any of the episodes him specifically talking about having a writing cabin, but in this case he talks about that, and it seems to be right near Drusilla's pond, and he's using that for his writing, and many of the children arrive to plan an anniversary party for Mama and Daddy. So we get to see some of the family gathering because of some of these sorts of scenes, which is nice. Why I'm not at this party planning, I don't know. I guess they figured because I'm a doctor that I was too busy at work. But why isn't Aaron working? I don't know. I kind of felt a little left out, not having been invited to be part of this scene. John Boy and Elizabeth have a lovely scene in the treehouse, and I recall other scenes that Elizabeth had in the treehouse at times when she was going through emotional turmoil. In this case, she is very upset about the situation with Drew and heartbroken and doesn't know what to do about that, and John Boy comforts her. Olivia's subplot with Jimmy Weeks at school. The school's having a spelling bee, and she's really trying to encourage Jimmy in his studies. She goes out to see his parents, and his father thinks that he's just not smart enough and that he's not worth the trouble and maybe he shouldn't be in school. Olivia, of course, completely objects, and Jimmy's mother knows that he's bright and likes books. Olivia has a conversation with John Boy, gets his advice, and he says one of the things that made a big difference to him was this dictionary that he had, and that it opened all these amazing doors into new things for him. And so Olivia thinks that's a great idea, and she takes it and she gives it to Jimmy as a gift. His father at first says that's ridiculous. He doesn't want to accept it, but he goes off and Olivia puts it by the door, and then we see Jimmy come out and pick it up, and he's smiling, and Olivia, takes a little moment of triumph there. And then as he gets more engaged in things in school, he decides to enter that spelling bee, which is another moment of triumph for Olivia, but she's trying not to show that. It's like, oh, that's great. And then the whole spelling bee happens, and it's so heartwarming because Jimmy does end up winning the spelling bee, and his father has arrived. And so we have this sense of hope for the future for Jimmy with his family, and that his father will recognize how bright Jimmy is, and that there is a lot of potential for him, and that Jimmy will feel that as well for himself. The women get together and have a baby shower for Janet, and we, just have one of those sort of girls' gab session about things. While I'm there, I suggest to Janet that I just check her vitals, since I am an obstetrician. And I did have to learn how to put a blood pressure cuff on and how to sort of look like I knew what I was doing with it in order to do that scene. I had someone on, an advisor who showed me how to do that. And then at that point, I discovered that there are 2 heartbeats. So this becomes a big surprise and excitement for the whole family. Now, of course, John Boy and Janet are planning to go back to New York because Janet is adamant that she is having those babies in the hospital in New York. And of course, as they're leaving, Mama and Daddy are going off for their anniversary, and Janet and John Boy are leaving to go back to New York. And Drew and Elizabeth appear to have the house to themselves. And next thing you know, all the cars come back because Janet is in labor. Once Janet is in labor, it's sort of organized chaos with the family. All the other members, Jason arrives with all of his children, and he and Drew and the younger ones are all outside in the yard keeping the children occupied. They're not allowed to go into the house. I am delivering the babies. And a lot of this was ad-libbed. There was some dialogue and stuff like that, but in a lot of the sequences, it was just ad-libbing. And literally, I had my son about 10 to 12 weeks just before this. So what went on during labor was all too near and dear to my mind and my recollections. So fortunately, I felt very comfortable with what would be going on there, and handling these infants, these 2. John Boy's supposed to have twins, and we had multiple babies that we worked with, the infants, and every time they were on set, there was a stopwatch because they literally couldn't be under the lights. It's like everything would be dark. They'd bring the baby in. There was a nurse standing there, and there was someone with a stopwatch, and they would turn the lights on, turn the camera on, and we could shoot with the infant when you could actually see that it was the infant for 30 seconds, and then it would be like cut, and they'd shut the lights off, and they'd, take the baby out from there. So it's very restrictive and very protective of the young ones. But I felt very comfortable because I was every day dealing with a baby not much bigger than these infants. So a lot of fun for me to do all of that. John Boy is completely losing it, having to wait and all of this. He doesn't know what to do. And John takes him for a walk, and he's at the pond, and he's ranting and raving, and John just pushes him into the pond. And it sort of snaps John Boy back out of that. They're back home, and before we know it, Mama is bringing John Boy his baby girl. And we have some beautiful moments of the baby and John Boy holding the baby. And then we're back into the delivery of the second baby. And then his son, John Boy's son, is delivered to him. And another just beautiful moment of him with his son. Then both babies are taken back upstairs, and we have a sweet, sweet moment of John Boy and Janet each holding one of their babies as we see another part of the next generations of the Waltons. They're about to start. The episode ends beautifully with a Easter sunrise service, and all of the Waltons are there. And we shot this out on location very early in the morning. And I thought it was just a beautiful celebration, a beautiful way to end the episode, and in a sense, end the last of the actual filmed, scripted segments of the Waltons. That's what I have for you for this part of Walton Easter. Next time I'm going to go into a little more of the background aspects of filming this. What was different about sets and locations and cast and choices and things like that. So a lot of you have commented about things within this, and I noticed a lot of things. So I'm going to dig into those next time. In the meantime, have a very happy Easter, and I'll see you again. Thanks for watching.